What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Strong Minded Podcast, the best place for you if you're a man on your self improvement journey. Today, we have a pretty awesome guest. Obviously, we've had a few conversations already in the past, been on his podcast a couple of times. He is a men's life coach. Obviously, he's going to introduce himself to you guys. His name is Tino Rigano, the sophisticated man. So how's it going, brother? You good?
I'm good, man. I'm good, bro. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
You're very welcome, dude. It'd be good to have another conversation.
Mm.
This time you're in the hot seat, so I'm gonna be asking you some juicy questions. Hopefully, we'll try and keep the audience entertained and engaged. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing right now.
hmm
Just general kind of introduction to who you are.
Sure. Yeah. So, like Joe said, I'm a men's life coach. I guess you can get more specific with that and say I'm kind of like a men's confidence coach. My main area is just helping guys really thrive in their identity as a man, with their masculinity, in their lifestyle. So, setting up like structure and discipline, and then just attracting high quality relationships. Those are kind of my three areas or three pillars of of growth. And that's mostly what I talk about in my content, helping guys in all of those avenues. I've been at this for about 5 years. Started in like 2018. My brand name, like Joe said, is called The Sophisticated Man. So the idea behind that is like being a guy who's confident, being a guy who's smooth, suave, authentic, and just kind of in your own way. Like you don't have to be my version of smooth, but just kind of being being your best self and showing up the way that's really attractive to you or to other people, but representing yourself. So that's kind of my main thing and how I describe it.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we're fairly similar in the kind of approach that we take, talking about a range
hmm
of different topics, but centraling on self improvement and obviously building yourself up as a man first. So,
hmm
um, what would you say your journey's been like in terms of self improvement? What kind of got you into the space in the first place?
hmm Yeah, I mean, my journey, like I said, started about 5 years ago. I was kind of in a weird predicament. I was in college, so I went to a four-year university, and right around the time of my senior year, I kind of had a crisis of identity. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know who I was or what I was even really passionate about. I know a lot of guys can relate to that. I ended up still graduating, so I got my degree, but then I was like, well, I just don't really want to do this career path because I was in there for athletic training, but I just knew that's not what I was passionate about. I didn't feel like I had purpose. So I had that going on, and then I got broken up with this girl. We had some really strange kind of situation. It was somewhat toxic, and that was going on at the same time. I had friends that I was kind of falling out of touch with. They were getting into some things like partying and drugs and didn't want to go down that path. So a lot of this stuff was kind of happening at once. And on top of that, I was getting back surgery for my back. So I had to like really cool out and just find time to recover. And during that time, I found YouTube videos. I found other coaches online. Corey Wayne is one of the guys that like introduced me to purpose, self improvement, masculinity. All these terms are like brand new to me, and started to learn a little bit more about him and his journey. And I got more into just that kind of content. I started watching some more videos, started to just take some notes and started to take action on it. And then really after that, I started to apply myself in just different areas. Like, all right, well, I want to do some more self improvement. And then I found a program actually in my city that offered life coaching, which I didn't really know what it was at the time, but I signed up for it anyway, took a stab at it, and then found out I really, really enjoyed coaching and just like the actual art of coaching somebody. Then
Mm.
got certified. And then from there, wanted to start my own brand and kind of wanted to put my spin on the things that I was learning in that phase. So a lot of it is just kind of personal experience and just the things that I struggled with growing up, like didn't have confidence, didn't know how to talk to women, like didn't wasn't confident in talking to females or getting dates or even feeling fulfilled like in my own lifestyle. So all the things that I teach are basically the things that I had to go through early on in life. Like they say, like your mess is your message, and that's kind of my story.
100%. Yeah, man, definitely. Like resonate with a lot of what you said there in terms of the starting point. I think anyone who becomes a life coach has probably had some sort of adversity or some sort of experiences that have happened in their life that have got them onto the route of self improvement. And I
Hmm.
think coming from an athletic background as well, like I think we're both from fairly athletic backgrounds as well. It's like you become
Hmm.
like very tunnel vision focused. At least for me, like I
Yep.
became very tunnel vision focused on self improvement, and it wasn't like a one of those things where you like you watch a few videos here and there, but like you're still doing other stuff. And like for me, it was very much like a serious thing of like
Hmm.
I was getting into content that was really kind of opening up my mind and getting me to think in new ways, and I was understanding why certain things were happening to me in my life. And it was, I don't know, I just really find enjoyment from having those little epiphanies, where you're like, oh, it all makes sense now. Like, I understand stuff. So, I guess that desire to know the ultimate truth, like to understand things, is really important in self improvement. Obviously, in our own journey as life coaches, but also translating that to our clients. Because I think
Hmm.
if you're really wanting to make improvements in your life, you have to be very honest with yourself, and it has to become like a central, serious focus. Like you're not going to achieve anything significant if there isn't that focus there. If you're doing things in a kind of half-hearted sort of way. So yeah, like
Hmm.
for me, obviously, I started my life coaching brand when I was 22, so probably similar kind of age to you. After doing my masters, and yeah, I was kind of experiencing a little bit of heartbreak as well, and was in a position where I didn't have many friends going on. Like everyone had finished their masters degrees and gone back home, and I decided to kind of stay in the local area and see what was kind of happening and going on there. So I had a lot of free time. In that time, I was starting to get into kind of more into self improvement books, like Stephen Covey's books, like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and uh, those sort of books. Like coming from a bit more of an academic background, I really liked
Hmm.
kind of the written word and the literature and stuff that was kind of very quite analytical and broke everything down in that sort of way. But it sounds like we're in fairly similar positions, um, but kind of got into self improvement in slightly different ways. But yeah, so what would you say is like been one of the maybe the key things that you've been working on recently, like within yourself to continue like leveling up? Because obviously, um, in business, it's a very competitive marketplace, and you have to constantly be
Hmm.
trying to compete at your best. So there's no way just to remain stagnant and stay in your own lane. So yeah, what have you been working on?
Yeah, I would say recently, and I even made a video about this on my channel, but stoicism has been something that's coming up for me a lot lately. And specifically in stoicism, just kind of like the art of not being too worried about what I can't control and just focusing on what I can directly control. Like I was telling you before we started recording this, I have another injury right now. Like I have my knee that got messed up, so I can't really do a lot of walking can't go to the gym, can't do things like that yet. So it's weird how that worked and the timing of it, because a lot of it is still very fresh, and I'm learning like, well, okay, now I can't do this. What can I do? Well, I can still research things content wise. I can still film content. I can still coach clients. I can still go out and be involved in my business. And any other work I could do, I could still do remotely. So it's kind of like developing this mindset in myself of like, okay, well, this sucks, and I'm not gonna say like it doesn't. I don't care, and it doesn't affect me. It does, but I'm also looking at the positives, and I'm looking at, well, this is not an option right now. What can I do? And I think that just that stoic mindset, I think can really take guys far, because I think and it's human nature. We focus on like what we can't do, or the negatives, or things that are out of our control, and that just, I think, creates more misery and just more negative emotions. So if you focus on what you can do, well, you're giving yourself that opportunity and that potential, as opposed to taking it away. So that's what I've been thinking.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I think it comes down to having a long term mindset as well, accepting your current
Yeah.
circumstances and what you're capable of doing within yourself in your current circumstances. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a big thing. Is like a lot of guys don't necessarily go onto a self improvement journey because they're so focused on the end goal, the end destination, like being a millionaire, getting hooking up with loads of girls, like um, living this fancy dream lifestyle that you see like posted all over the place by influencers.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think it's a lot more healthy to focus on what you can, the small improvements that you can make on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, to get you
Yep.
towards, just to get you further along the route, because you never
Mm-hmm.
know like what you're gonna feel like in a month's time if you just simply start going to the gym, or you start watching regular self improvement content, or you start putting some energy towards building a business or a passion project, or anything like that. You'll never know how you're gonna transform how you feel about yourself, just through taking small steps. You don't need to be at the final destination. Obviously, a lot of these guys, obviously they post a lot of content. A lot of it is showing the highlight reel and all the rest of it. But a lot of these guys are still like kind of chasing a lot of validation from outside of themselves. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
there's this kind of final destination you get to where you're like, right, I'm happy and fulfilled now. Like it's a
Yep.
continuous journey. But I think learning the art of accepting your current circumstances and your current reality, um, and and that being enough for you at that particular time, without not wanting obviously to achieve more, I think is fundamentally important, because it's going to bring a lot more enjoyment and fulfillment to the journey. So yeah, obviously you mentioned stoicism, which I would say is
Mm-hmm.
heavily lacking in today's society within men. So why
Sure.
would you say that's the case?
Why is it lacking? I think a lot of guys are just kind of being trained about, and this kind of can get into a little deeper of a topic there, but I think a lot of the reasons is because men are just being pushed to be more emotional. If you just look at like mainstream media, and you look at like kind of what's happening in just culture, and just kind of what's being pushed, there's a lot of men showing up in like very feminine ways. And again, I don't think that's like 100% wrong, because there's a space where you do need to touch into your emotions, and you need to be understanding of what those are. You need to understand yourself. But I think that for men to perform at the highest level possible, and to be a guy, like to be a guy that's really killing it in life, in business and self-improvement, and making money and making something of themselves, you do have to have a level of stoicism, and you do need a level of like a masculine foundation, which I just don't think is, you're not taught that. Like no one teaches you, hey, this is how you control your emotions, and this is how you uh, improve your current circumstance, or this is how to be more of a man. Like, we're never really taught this. So I think that is like severely lacking in just media or just mainstream culture.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think especially social media and the culture of kind of
Mm-hmm.
instant gratification. It just, whether it's on
Yeah.
one extreme of being like super kind of in the kind of woke mentality, we can call it blue pill mentality if you want, which is like
Mm-hmm.
um, everything is very short term, and it's all about making sure that you're comfortable and happy, and you're pretty much living off your
Yeah.
emotions. But then you've
Mm-hmm.
got the extreme side of it, which is like the red pill side of it, which is like ignore all your emotions, just be super resilient and ruthless, just go after money, don't give a fuck about girls and their feelings, um, don't care about anyone else's opinion, like,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it's quite kind of surface level, very kind of shallow, unless you kind of dive into deeper self improvement content, which is obviously like your long form content. It's like YouTube, it's like podcasts, self improvement books, obviously coaching sessions. Um, like
Mm-hmm.
if you're just simply watching a 20-second reel, like, or clip, like, you that isn't real genuine like self improvement. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of just entertainment and mental masturbation, really.
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say is like the thing that you're trying to promote most at the moment with your audience?
Mm. Thing that I'm trying to promote most is it's a lot of different things. I feel like I speak on a lot of different like topics and just things to do, but one thing that I always find myself coming back to is being intentional with your attention, and like kind of to your point, with since we live in like such a social media age where everything is instant, and our attention spans are like less than a second nowadays. I try to promote, well, if that's the case and people are fiending for your attention, like content creators are fiending for your attention, for your like, your subscription, your comment, your engagement, I'm kind of promoting like, well, that's someone giving you that, well, you're giving your attention away. Like, take it back. Like, you should be applying that in real life. Like, you can watch all the self-improvement content you want, which is
Hmm.
great. Like, I still watch it myself, but it doesn't really do anything for you. Like, you might feel good in the moment. You think, hey, this is great. I feel like I'm accomplishing things, but you
Mm.
haven't actually experienced anything in real life. Like, you're not actually self-improving. You're just kind of working on your mentality, which again, there's a time and a place, but for the most part, it's kind of like the consumer production ratio. Like, how much are you producing versus how much are you consuming? If you're always
Mm.
consuming, especially this is like especially true for men. If we are just consuming information and not doing anything with it or producing any kind of result, we're not going to feel like we're making any strides, because like masculinity is about that exact thing, is like being accomplished, like breaking through barriers and um, having goals, reaching those goals. But we're not going to do that if I'm constantly stimulated by something, or if I'm constantly watching something and
Mm.
never doing anything with it. So that's a big part that I try to put out there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, I think like obviously taking action. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you need the knowledge, you need like strategy, strategy there, but
Yep.
as soon as you've gathered that, then it's time to start taking action. Obviously, go out into the real world, and um, I think it comes down to as well like understanding how to challenge your emotions as well, whether like whatever emotion it is that you feel, whether it's sadness or like guilt, shame, like regret, fear. Fear is like obviously one of the biggest ones that people fear and people feel. Sorry, um,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to challenge that emotion. Like it's crazy the world we live in now, where people are so wrapped up in cotton wool that they don't get to experience what it's like to overcome something that they're afraid of, which is so like
Yeah.
fundamental, I think, to just achieving anything in life. Like I remember when I was a kid, like I was very fearless, um, and I guess every kid has their own like different upbringing and journey, but I think
Mm-hmm.
on the whole, a lot of kids are a lot more fearless than most adults, just because they haven't had that kind of fear ingrained in their mind, and they're a lot more living in the present moment as well. They're kind of their eyes are open, and they're living
Mm-hmm.
through the experience that they're currently having, rather than living it through some sort of stories or information
Yep.
or thoughts that they're having about certain situations. And I think sometimes we can be a little bit too like conscious and intelligent for our own good, rather than just
Yeah.
um, living in the moment and doing the thing that you want to do, living through desire and through impulse. And I think a big part of that's
Mm-hmm.
obviously, especially in recent years, is the influx of wokeism and woke culture, where people just, especially with the pandemic and people being heavily controlled and manipulated to the point where they don't feel like they have any sort of level of freedom. They don't want to say the wrong thing, and they don't want to stand out because they're
Yep.
so afraid of that judgment. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what are your kind of thoughts on wokeism and feminism?
Yeah, I mean, we could open up a whole different like branch of conversation with that. Um, Overall, I think I want to keep it kind of on point because you're mentioning fear, and I think that's kind of like the tool for people that are on that end of the spectrum. Like if you're super woke or super, I mean, just really any. If you really think of any like extreme group, their main tool they use is fear to control
Hmm.
people. Because if you're in a fearful state, you're way more easy to just follow something blindly without questioning it, or to just go along with what people say because you're like, I don't want to be that guy that rocks the boat. So I think that is a huge thing to pay attention to, especially with like mainstream media. Is like you turn on the news. I mean, the first story you're gonna see is somebody got killed, someone got robbed, some kind of tragic event happened. Like they're just immediately pumping you full of negativity and fear and chaos, and that just leaves you to be like, well, what do we do? What's the next step? Because I think to your point too about kids, you notice like how kids are typically like they don't fear much. Like they're kind of just going about their life, and I think that that's because fear is a learned behavior. Fear is a learned thing, and curiosity is innate. So if you're naturally curious, you're not really fearful. You're just kind of like seeing what's out there. You're curious of what that thing could be, and you're learned. Oh, okay, because something happened, now I'm fearful, or because something happened,
Mm.
now I'm inspired, or I learned something. So if you push the fear without letting people kind of have their own natural curiosities about themselves, well, then that's how you create people that are super obedient, that are basically like slaves. Like they don't have a mind of their own because they're stuck in fear. So I think if people can get back to questioning things and just being curious and say, well, that doesn't sound right, or maybe this is different, maybe it isn't exactly like you're telling me, and have different perspectives. I just think it makes for a healthier and just more conscious society as a whole.
Yeah, man, for sure. I think as well. Obviously, there's a lot of people that do question things, but they
Hmm.
kind of use it as a way of being a victim to their circumstances,
Yep.
like feeling like society is controlling them and pushing them down. Um, so,
Hmm.
what would be your perspective or advice for guys like that are kind of stuck in a bit of a negative mindset, a bit of a rut?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the stoic mentality, like we were talking about. It's like that situation is like you're kind of focusing on what is happening to you and not what's happening for you. So it's like kind of
Mm,
starting to reframe it in your mind. Okay, this sucks. Like I'm not in the position where I want to be, or maybe I don't have the kind of money I want to make, or whatever your situation is, and just reframe it and say, well, okay, this sucks, but what can I do? Okay, I can work on a resume, or I could build a skill set. I can learn. I mean, we're literally in the age of information, and is we were highlighting some of the negative things of social media. There's also a ton of positives. Like you could literally learn any skill set and become a
mm,
valuable person to make extra money, to get a business, to build a business, to be of an asset to somebody's business. I mean, you can learn anything from just your iPhone. So it's also looking at just that landscape of an opportunity and just kind of deciding what is it that you want to do because it's gonna be hard regardless. Like you're gonna be stressed out. You're gonna be, I don't know, maybe you're gonna be confused. But would you rather be confused and stressed learning something that's gonna eventually pay off, or would you rather be stressed out and just complain and play the victim and just kind of stay stuck? So it's
mm,
you think about it like you have a lot more control over that than people think.
mm. I think vision is really important as
Yeah,
well. Like
definitely.
to have that thing in your mind's eye of what you're ultimately trying to create and what you're trying to get to. Like
Yep.
obviously the goalpost is always changing as we change and evolve as human beings. Like what we want changes based on our current environment, current circumstances, and all the rest of it. But I think if you have like a long term vision of who you want to be, who you want to become, and the kind of life that you want to live as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially like if you give yourself like a 5 year kind of vision
Yep.
of where you want to be in 5 years time. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like a, a far enough place that it's going to make you grow a shit ton, but it's not so far away that it's going to feel like you're never going to get there as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think if you're a guy and you don't really have a vision, you don't really know what you want in your life. You don't really know what you want to create, and I guess
Mm-hmm.
it comes down again to lack of imagination and creativity. I think is a big one because
Yep.
obviously those guys that have been through the system, that have gone to school, been through education, university, gone straight into a 9 to 5 job. All of those things are very much like systemized of like, look, this is how you do your job. This is what you got to do. It's A, B, and C. Right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's no like outside of the box thinking. There's no use of imagination and creativity. And obviously, if you're wanting to live like a dream lifestyle, then you have to create that first in your mind's eye before it becomes a reality. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
you need to strategize. You need to work out what the steps are that are going to help you get to that place and ultimately take action towards it. But if you can't
Yeah.
even create it inside of your mind, then whatever you're going through is always going to be more powerful um, than your desire to grow and to self improve. So yeah, how would you say
Mm-hmm.
like you go about that in your own life in terms of creating that vision for yourself? How do you go about doing that for your clients as
Mm-hmm.
well?
Yeah. Yeah, vision is huge, and I'm glad you bring that up because I was just having a conversation about this with my coach earlier today, and it's funny because a lot of people, when you ask them, well, what do you want out of life, and they say, well, I want to be rich. Okay, like, what does that mean though? Like, how do you want to be rich? How
Mm.
do you want to make your money? I don't know, maybe something in sales. Okay, well, what in sales? What do you want to be selling? Maybe I want to sell medical equipment or fitness equipment. Okay,
Okay.
why? Like, why do you want to do that? So I think you can really boil down a vision to kind of understanding what are your motivations and what gets you excited. Because if you ask
Mm.
yourself simple questions, what do I want? I don't know. Okay, why don't you know? So if you just like you continually ask yourself the right questions, eventually you're gonna come up with an answer. Like you're gonna find something that like, oh yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Even with people that I hop on with calls with, like a prospect or something, and I ask them, what do you want out of life? Like, what's your vision? Oh yeah, I want my family to be retired. I want to make money. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Mm.
Okay, well, how are you gonna do that? Like, what's
Yeah.
what's the plan? I don't know. I want to like do something in my career, maybe get a better job. Okay, what job? Like, if you were to wave a magic wand, money aside, if you had everything the way you wanted it, what would you be doing, and why would you be doing it? Oh, well, actually, I don't know. I never thought about it. Well, think about it. Like, what do you think? And that's, I think, just continually to ask yourself the right kind of questions and ask yourself why. Like, why do I want this? Is there a reason? Like, what's the bigger purpose behind it? And I think the clearer you can get on those answers, then the clearer your vision will be because you'll have those answers.
Yeah, man. I think that kind of sums up a lot of inner work. Really, is obviously there's all of
Mm-hmm.
these things that you can be doing externally. You can be training. You can be, making money, investing. Anything that you can do, you can do it externally to get you to an external place. But if you don't really know where you're wanting to go and why you're wanting to go to that place, then it's always
Mm-hmm.
gonna feel kind of distant emotionally because it's not coming from
Yeah.
the heart really. Um, so yeah, I think obviously a big part of my personal coaching is getting people to really to tap into their emotions and understand why they feel certain ways about certain things, and mainly just getting
Mm-hmm.
people to emotionally kind of detach from a lot of the stuff that they value and that they think is important and they use to kind of
Yep.
um, base their value upon. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally, like every human being has significant value. Every human being has the same value and has like unique potential. Like obviously, 99% of people have untapped potential. Like they never really like discover what they're really capable of doing. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that they don't have the potential inside of them. It's just untapped, and they haven't learned how to tap into that. And I think a big part of that is learning to detach away from your story and who you think you are, because obviously your current identity, your current circumstances are a result of the story that you've lived out so far in your life. And so
Yep.
getting guys to realize that you're fully responsible for everything that you've created, whether it's good or
Mm-hmm.
bad, and then obviously using that as an empowering way of saying that you can literally become whoever you want to be, right? And it doesn't matter what your family think about it. It doesn't matter what your friends think about it. It doesn't matter what people on social media think about it. It's who you want to be and who you want to show up as in the
Mm-hmm.
world. So yeah, that would be my kind of take on vision. But yeah, share with me like what is your vision for the next 5 years? What like where do you see yourself being? Who do you see yourself becoming?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. For me personally, part of my vision is obviously to go full time in the business. Not even within the next 5 years. I'd say within the next like 3 to 5 months, um, just to go full time. Like get rid of any part times that I have, take the coaching full time. Get a whole roster of clients, make some transformations. Uh, Eventually, what I would love to do is once this gets to like 6 figures, maybe 7 figures, kind of scaling it up. I would love to expand and do something like a tour. So I'd love to get into public speaking at some point where I can maybe take some of the messages that I'm giving on social media, but doing that in like
Mm,
an in-person kind of event where I have speeches, there's seminars, there's like workshops. Um, Obviously, I'd have guests come on, maybe give their story, give their 2 cents, but basically hosting events and potentially
mm,
going like across the country or maybe even the world to kind of share like a good message and get guys in the room that all want to improve themselves. Because I've been to a lot of those, I've been to seminars, and a lot of them, some of them are really good, but I think that the common thing I find is you get really hyped up in the moment, and then like for a few days you're
mm.
feeling good, but it doesn't really translate into much else afterwards, unless you like keep in contact with people and stay
Yeah,
accountable. It's
motivation versus
very easy to be
self-improvement.
like, yeah, like it's very easy to feel like, oh man, this is awesome. I'm gonna conquer the world, and then you finally go back home and you're like, oh, well, what do I do now? And they lose that momentum. So I would love to have uh, some kind of um, platform where I can go in person, help these guys, give value on stage, and keep that going, and like without having them
Mm.
slow down and creating some kind of community around that. That would be really sweet. And then yeah, just really growing the brand and the pages social media wise, and obviously I would love to invest into real estate at some point, kind of diversify some investments. Um, yeah, and just really grow from there, to be honest.
Yeah, man, I love that. Like, I think particularly for men, it's so important to have that element of brotherhood and um,
Yeah.
feeling like guys like genuinely give a fuck about you and want you to
Yeah.
improve and develop. Because
Hmm.
obviously we've all like a lot of us have experienced um, not having that support, not having that encouragement, whether it comes from specifically from our father. Like that father figure is like so important and huge, and um,
Yep.
like their generation obviously is very different to what our generation is like. Obviously,
Hmm.
we're going to make mistakes as future fathers. Hopefully, both of us become fathers. I don't know if that's your goal in life, but I want to be a father at some
Oh,
point.
for sure.
And I'm
Hmm.
sure we will make mistakes, and then their generation will learn from our mistakes and continue to improve and all the rest of it. But I think obviously in their
Hmm.
generation, showing love, showing encouragement, showing support, those kind of things were seen as being weakness, like as being like emotionally vulnerable. And
Hmm.
obviously, we've talked in the past about vulnerability and when it's a good time to be vulnerable and when it isn't. But I
Yeah.
think particularly with your family members, with people that you should really be very emotionally close to. A lot of guys haven't received that kind of validation, that kind of encouragement, that kind of support from their fathers. So they kind of, in a way, they need it from other men that are in kind of similar positions to themselves. And I think with what you were saying as well with live events, like I see so much of it that's kind of like hyped up, like woo woo sort of stuff, like not hitting out on
Hmm.
any guys, but guys like Tony Robbins and like Bob Proctor and all of these kind of
Hmm.
self improvement motivational speakers where they're packing rooms, like absolute
Yep.
stadiums full of people. But how many of those are getting really true, life changing,
Hmm.
transformational self improvement?
Yeah.
Um, like obviously there's a time and place for motivational kind of talk, and I'm not saying that it's completely redundant and useless. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, particularly, I'd rather have a room of like 10 guys, and we maybe there's just a few guests, and you do like a bit of kind of Q&A, and maybe you go for like drinks, and you go for a meal afterwards, and it's more of a kind of a smaller kind of gathering, but all geared towards self-improvement and brotherhood, and
Mm-hmm.
moving along together, creating that aspect of a tribe. And I like that
Mm-hmm.
word as well, tribe, because I think that goes kind of back to real traditional masculinity of um, of what made men so strong, and what kind of brought society like further forward as well, was that element of tribe.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I think brotherhood is such an important thing, and I'm starting to hear a lot more creators talk about it. But I think that's one of the reasons that creators like you and I are becoming so popular, or just that it's starting to become a place where people want that kind of support, or people ask for it because they haven't gotten it growing up. I mean, I can speak for myself. Like, I never really got that kind of support, even though my dad was around and I could tell like we have a good relationship. It's just I didn't really get that kind of like, hey, what is your vision? Like, tell me about what's going on. Like, what are you passionate about? Or didn't really hear a lot of I'm proud, or
Hmm.
anything like that. So that was a
Yeah.
big reason that I myself looked into the content that I do. And I know a lot of guys feel the same way. Like, it's not just me. So I think it's super important to have some kind of, even if it's two or three guys that are in your life where they're all working on themselves, they're trying to improve, they're holding you accountable, they're holding themselves accountable, and they just genuinely care about your growth and your development. I think that's critical, and I think it's one of the reasons that guys today feel super lonely is because we don't have that connection of other men that are becoming high value and increasing themselves and improving themselves. There's just a lot of guys that are isolated and they're
Mm.
very lonely. Like they're suffering in silence, and they don't have that group to kind of pick them up. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the whole like self improvement kind of entrepreneurial space in at times can be very kind of cold and
Mm-hmm.
ruthless. And if you're on that kind of journey yourself, if you're into business, like I find it for myself, I'll naturally like look at other content creators, what
Oh
other
yeah.
people are doing, even if like, even for yourself, for example, like other guys that I know that are coaches that are doing like fairly well, like in terms of like comparing yourself to what they're doing, and kind of creating a sense of competition in your mind, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is healthy and good to a level, um, because obviously it's going to push you to become better, but ultimately as well,
Mm-hmm.
like you're not trying to compete with everyone. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
a meaningless game to play in your own mind, because we're all living completely separate separate kind of lives. We're all having our own separate experience. What might be super important to you might be less important to me, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think learning as guys to kind of be less competitive, and see like another guy as like a brother that you kind of want to support and encourage, and sometimes give a little bit of tough love to,
Yep.
and be open to receiving that um, that kind of support back as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
is super important for guys. So
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of vulnerability, of it's okay to open up to your brothers. It's okay to sometimes to show weakness, or to say I don't know what I'm doing in this certain aspect, or any of that sort of stuff. As long as you've got guys beside you that not completely degenerate, that are like trying to put aspects into their life, that are taking their life seriously. Um, you know,
Yeah.
as long as you feel like you can trust these guys, and that they've got your back, then you should
Hmm.
try to open up to them a little bit, and let them help you, because no man is an island at the end of the day. And I think it's better to open up to your brothers, like to guys who genuinely want you to improve and succeed, versus spilling all of your emotions to a woman who probably doesn't give a fuck what you're going through. And
Hmm. Yep.
and it's probably going to destroy all
Yeah.
the attraction there. So yeah, that would be my take. But I think that's quite a good place for us to finish this conversation. It's obviously been another good, powerful conversation, where I think a lot of the stuff we talked about is very impactful for the viewer. So before we obviously end it, do you want to tell people a little bit about what you've got going on right now, what they can look forward to, how they can get into contact with you, etc.?
Yeah. If you guys wanted to dive deeper into anything we talked about and maybe start thinking about mentorship or just kind of get into coaching itself, I offer one-on-one coaching, so you guys can follow my pages. It's all the same on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. You just type in The Sophisticated Man. I'll show up on all those. Um, I think soon I'm going to start maybe like a free accountability group of guys that are maybe like a 7-day challenge that want to just push
Mm,
themselves, but they're maybe a little hesitant to do it on a call or do anything like coaching wise because they never did it.
mm.
I am thinking about starting that. So you'll probably see that on my Instagram page, maybe on YouTube. Just I'll start giving shout outs about it. But yeah, if you want to join, definitely feel free and hit me up about it. I'm trying to get some guys in there.
Awesome. It sounds like you got some good stuff going on. I think if you got something that's uh, available for free, you should definitely
Yep.
hop on board with that, because it could be the start of a very beautiful journey. So, thank you
Hmm.
for jumping on, Tino. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and knowledge and experience. Thank you guys for jumping on to another episode. Stay tuned for more podcast guests coming on. So obviously subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed today's episode and you're looking forward to more. Give it a like for the algorithm. Let us know how today's episode resonated with you. If you have any questions or anything like that, me or Tino would definitely be keen to get back to you. And we'll see you all on the next episode.
Deuces.